parkour is essentially foundational human locomotion. It's the way we are supposed to move, which is why when I'm explaining it to people who are new to the subject, I do make the distinction between parkour and free running. Like I said, even though most of us use the terms interchangeably, I'm not talking about, hitting triple corks on concrete. I'm talking about the foundational movements that compose parkour are essentially what humans are supposed to be doing. We are jumping, we are running, we are swinging, and we are taking height drops, and everything that we do is completely technical. A lot of people have this misconception that we just kind of go out and do stuff. People don't realize it's a real sport with actual moves that have names and a right and wrong way to do them. It's an actual real discipline.
I'm Gabe Puente, CEO of RG Vision Media, and this is our podcast, where all entrepreneurs, small business owners, and leaders come in to get insightful information from other business owners in our network of individuals who can add value to your company, organization, or business. Welcome, Lorena Abreu.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for coming to the RG Vision podcast. So I'm so excited. Your current cover story, star, you're an actress, stunt woman, parkour athlete. I'll let you introduce yourself, and then I'm really wanting to get to know how you fell in love with parkour first. But if you don't mind, just introducing yourself.
Oh, thank you so much for the kind words. Yeah, my name is Lorena Abreu, and I'm currently working as a professional stunt performer with my specialty being parkour, and also as project coordinator and website and graphics guy for my family's business, Kiskeya Athletics in FAR.
That's exciting. So for the listeners who don't know what parkour is, do you mind explaining what that is?
Yeah, parkour is a discipline in which certain movements are used to effectively maneuver in a varied environment. And the term free running was originally intended to be the English translation for the French word parkour, but over time the community has more or less designated the term free running to describe creative movement. So I like to look at it as a spectrum, and if parkour is on one end with just jumps, vaults, laches, wall runs at all, and then free running is on the other end of the spectrum with anything that's not just creative, not just your flips and tricks, but anything that's technically non-efficient. Most of us train some of both, which is why we still tend to use the terms interchangeably. I would be more on the parkour end, but I can do some basic flips, for example.
Basic? No, they're not basic. I mean, to me, it's like watching your video reel. I almost busted my knee just looking at it. It's pretty impressive. So how did you fall? First talk about where'd you learn about parkour, and then how did you get it? I guess that's your passion, right? That's something that you've been doing for a while. To walk us through that journey of how you started.
Well, I was a whole adult. I was attending film school. I was at Full Sail University in Orlando, Florida, when some guy in class said that there was a cheer gym that had parkour open gym, quote unquote, on Saturdays. And it sounded like fun. So I went, and it was super fun. And I very quickly got obsessed and started training with the local practitioners and had some really good friends, Gareth, Caleb, Jimmy, my team Rilla Hops, that taught me everything I needed to know. So
did you know anything about parkour? What was your first impression, when you heard about it? What did you know about it before?
I didn't know anything about parkour previously. Yeah. I think I might have seen that clip from The Office, but otherwise it was the word held more of a connotation than a definition in my mind. Yeah. And of course, as soon as I started training, I fell absolutely in love with it.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting your father, right, who is Dr. Abreu. Mm-hmm. And he was talking to me about how there is a misconception, about, the injuries. Right.
Absolutely.
So talk a little bit about that, because that was fascinating to me when I first heard it. There's more kids who are playing, whether it be football, basketball, there seems to be a lot more injuries now today than there would be in something like parkour.
Absolutely. Parkour is essentially foundational human locomotion. It's the way we are supposed to move, which is why when I'm explaining it to people who are new to the subject, I do make the distinction between parkour and free running. Like I said, even though most of us use the terms interchangeably, I'm not talking about, hitting triple corks on concrete. I'm talking about the foundational movements that compose parkour are essentially what humans are supposed to be doing. We are jumping, we are running, we are swinging. and we are taking height drops, and everything that we do is completely technical. A lot of people have this misconception that we just kind of go out and do stuff. People don't realize it's a real sport with actual moves that have names and a right and wrong way to do them. It's an actual real discipline. Yeah. It's not some made up nebulous thing that describes any kind of whatever you do with an obstacle. So the techniques we use in parkour, especially our posture, our jumping technique, where we hinge our hips, we bend our knees, and we live on the balls of our feet, is the proper way to absorb impact and use the correct muscles to perform jumps. So when you do parkour, not only are you training your body to move in ways that it's supposed to move, but you're also interacting with obstacles. You're interacting with factors outside of yourself. So it gives you a sense of proprioception that nothing else quite gives you, because you'll gain proprioception from dancing. You'll know where one limb is without having to look at it. But with parkour, you also gain a masterful understanding of how you exist within your environment. And my dad puts it so eloquently when he argues that parkour, taught correctly, will reduce your risk of injury in other sports and in life, because you will have not just the falling techniques, that is a foundational component of parkour, but you will have the proprioception and your spatial awareness that I really don't think anything else can quite give you. Yeah. And so obviously things can go wrong. You can roll your ankle, you can get your overuse injuries like patellar tendonitis, things you see in other running and jumping sports, especially if you have an imbalance or you're not using something correctly. Yeah. But otherwise, parkour is it's not only technically safer than a lot of other sports, especially someone that used to film soccer games. That was one of my first jobs. Yeah. Oh man. But parkour skills and experience in parkour, that muscle memory will definitely reduce your risk of injury, especially getting into older age. We have a parkour program for older adults that my dad trains as a part of, and maintaining muscle mass and maintaining reflexes and proproprioception is so important going into your older age too. And I mean old. I'm talking seniors learning parkour. Really? Wow. Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about myself. Like me just getting out of bed, I almost rolled my ankle this morning. So let's take it back. Talking about your first job, filming soccer. How did you get, or what led you to go into film? Was that something that you learned? I mean, walk us through that process and that journey. What was it that led you to follow that career?
Yeah, I'm very, very lucky. My full circle back to film was very cool. So I went to film school. I grew up forcing my neighbors here to be actors in the little movies that I would make. I would cut the cassettes manually, and then I started editing on like Roxio Media Player, and then Pinnacle, and then finally got my hands on Premiere. So I've always intended to work in the film industry. And initially my plan was to work as a video editor. I went to Full Sail University in Orlando, Florida. It's more or less like a trade school, and you graduate early because you don't have breaks if you choose a certain track. And when I graduated, I had already started doing parkour, but of course it was, I would say a hobby, but it was an obsession. But it was something I did very much recreationally. Yeah.
And did you find that was definitely an asset as a stunt actress, or even as an actress in film?
Oh yeah, and before I even get there, parkour for me is the best way to regulate, because it's not just physically taxing. I can go and lift weights, but parkour is taxing mentally just as much as it is physically, because not only are you employing creativity to design your line, make it as efficient as possible, see if you can add some flair, add your own style to it, but I'm also scared like 100% of the time. So parkour also teaches you fear management. I like to tell people parkour is not about overcoming fear, it's about learning how to manage your fear. You need to learn very objective, rational risk assessment skills, and oftentimes, even if the risk is minimal or even non-existent, you'll be scared anyways. Yeah. And parkour calmed down my hyperactivity in a way that nothing else did. I started working My first job out of film school was filming kids' sports games. And yeah, like 4 or 5 kids had to be carried out every game. It's just nuts. What happens when 4 people try to kick the same ball?
Oh, yeah.
But then I got a video editing internship at Universal Studios. And at that point, I had been putting some of my parkour content online along with the rest of my team. And I think the very first thing that ever happened to me was I got contacted by Adidas as my internship was coming to an end to do a commercial in London.
How did they...
The internet. Here's the other thing. Back then, there weren't a lot of women training parkour. This was 10 years ago. I'm 29 now. I was 19 or 20 at the time. And there weren't that many women training parkour. It's still a very novel sport. It was developed in the 80s. So when you Googled parkour girl, I kind of came up. There weren't that many of us. So that was the first non-union commercial I did. It was very cool. And then after that, I auditioned. I realized I hated video editing for other people because as much as I love editing, it's still like 10 hours looking at a computer screen.
Yeah.
So I auditioned for a few shows at Universal because I've always been a theater kid my whole life growing up here in the Valley. And I actually landed the role of the stunt princess in their stunt show. Then I got into the Flying Fish Market and some other live shows at Universal. And then I got a call from Cirque du Soleil, which is still probably the most random thing that's ever happened to me.
And where was this? Was this in LA? Where were you living at the time?
So far, I'm still in Orlando, performing live shows at Universal Studios. Every once in a while, I'd get flown to perform parkour for live events, corporate events. It was very bizarre. It was like these corporate retreats where the CEOs wanted to spice up their PowerPoint with some parkour. Very strange demand for that. I did a lot of those. It was weird. And all over too, in Chicago and San Francisco. Yeah, I don't know. CEOs, man.
That's funny. It's funny because you say 10 years ago. 10 years ago was prior to TikTok, prior to Instagram, that's when Facebook became somewhat of a platform for even people to share their stories. I know this because companies were coming to us figuring out, okay, how can we tell our story? Because that's that's our core competency, is just content creating, storytelling, before it was even a marketing buzzword. But we were doing that on our own platforms. And so I noticed, like, hey, what is this? This is weird. We're getting these requests to do this for other companies, but using social media. At the time it was Facebook, to show these stories. And before it just became like, a platform that everybody wanted to jump on, and now they have all these followers. So that's pretty interesting. So you were doing that. Like you created your own videos and put them on YouTube? Yeah.
Along with my parkour team, Rilla Hops. Yeah, and after I think 2 or 3 years of doing shows in Orlando, I got a call to fill in for a girl that got injured in Canada. Bless her heart, Erica Madrid. She's fantastic. We ended up working together, and so I went up to the circus in Montreal in Canada. I did that for 3 months, and then there was a whole lot of drama. A lot of acts were cut. A lot of people were fired. What happens when non-creative people are making creative decisions.
Right. And that's, you talk about risk mitigation and risk assessment, right? I mean, so it has allowed you, like going through parkour and then taking that and applying that in your career. Like, what was the biggest risk that you took in, in your career path?
I cannot say that I've taken a risk because I have the indisputable privilege of my parents being able to support me if something went wrong. So that's the first thing I tell people. If people ask me for advice, like, oh, how do I do what you do? And I say, well, first of all, you can't compare your story to mine because I had a safety blanket. I could take risks that so many people absolutely cannot take, right? I have the privilege of parents that not only love me, but had the ability to support me financially if I needed them.
Yeah.
So that's first and foremost. But I've always been a hard worker. I've always had lots of interests. Career-wise, I've always had a plan B, plan C, plan D. And this is regardless of who you are. If you plan to work in entertainment, you need a plan B, C, D, E. You can never put all your eggs in one basket. So I'm not trying to go back to video editing, but if I need to, I have a personal training certification that I got around that time. I enjoy doing portrait photography. And there is...
you got a lot of things on your belt, right?
Yeah, and I'm not afraid of getting an entry-level job as a floor trainer as a gym. Like, you got to do what you need to do, and you can't have an ego about it.
Right. That's really important because I'm sure that in your career you've seen people's like, oh, I'll never do that.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to go there. Right. So
they complain that they're not working. I'm like, bro, there's jobs.
Right.
There's jobs. But yeah, it was not too long after the circus ended, I got my personal training certification. And then, the first thing that happened was I got called to do Exatlón. So Exatlón Estados Unidos, it's a reality show made by the same Turkish guys, Akun Media, that makes Survivor. They shoot it in the same place as Survivor 2 in the Dominican Republic. And so I ended up doing that. I ended up being on the show surviving on the show, I guess, for the whole duration.
Yeah.
And did like third place. And that made my following shoot up. But I had already done like Saucony. I had already done a few commercials. I was already working in entertainment before that. But Exatlón afterwards gave me a new level of visibility, at least while my hair was still blonde. But then I got a call I got shortcutted into SAG with my first stunt job. So the shortcut into SAG is called getting tafted. They give you a Taft-Hartley form. They have to prove that there's no one else that can do this particular job that the stunt coordinator needs. And they write a letter, and then you pay your dues, and then you become SAG.
Wow.
So they ended up killing two birds with one stone with me because I looked like the guest actress in NCIS New Orleans. And they also needed some parkour goons to run away from the police.
Yeah.
And that was my first stunt job with Jonathan Arthur, stunt coordinator. Extremely kind family.
And that's for NCIS?
That was NCIS New Orleans.
New Orleans.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then other stuff happened. I did Ultimate Tag. That was cool. I did an episode.
Because that's basically that's the game for parkour, right? From my understanding, is Ultimate Tag. Is it or is it not?
World Chase. So Ultimate Tag is a game show. It's a gimmicky game show where we wear costumes and chase contestants.
Right.
Super fun. I adored it. It was so much fun to wear a costume and chase people around and also have a live audience.
Yeah.
Because that's something I really miss from live shows. I love messing with people. I love having that instant feedback.
Yeah.
So that was Ultimate Tag.
Because you feed the energy from the crowd. You
Yeah.
know? You get it.
And I would yell at the DJ to play like the cha-cha slide, and I just run into the audience and people would be like, Lorena, get back here. Like, but it was, Ultimate Tag was wonderful. I'm so glad I got that. And then it was a weird time after that. Ultimate Tag exacerbated a pain that I had been feeling in my shins since Exatlón was over. It got to the point where it was almost unbearable when I was landing jumps. And I found out I had stress fractures, like 8 of them. So my shins had been eating themselves because part of Exatlón was being partially starved. We would win more food if we won certain games.
Oh, see, that's something I want to talk about. But like the stress fractures, is it like shin splints almost, or is it totally something different?
I got a 20-minute video on YouTube explaining this because people don't know. The PT on Ultimate Tag checked out my shins. In hindsight, the symptoms were very obvious, but no. So one of the things, shin splint is when your fascia starts peeling away from your tibialis, and it's very painful, but you feel it along the length of your entire shin, and you can rehab it and rest it. Stress fractures are anterior tibial stress fractures. They're rare, so rare. There's not a lot of studies on them, but I think they're a lot more common than people think. I think they're massively undiagnosed. This messed up my life for 2 years, and it has taken people out of the game permanently.
Wow.
So stress fractures tend to occur more in women because a few factors come into play with stress fractures, and that is your nutrition. A stress fracture, this type of stress fracture in your shin usually doesn't happen unless your rate of bone resorption, bone growth. And that's something that happens when you don't have enough available energy for bone growth to occur at the appropriate rate to match the impact you're subjecting it to. Sorry, that sounded like a lot of word vomit.
Well, no, but I can imagine, I would only assume gymnastics maybe have...
Exactly.
Yeah, so a lot of gymnastics that deal with this.
So sports, boot camps in the military, whenever someone is under a lot of stress, so their cortisol is elevated, with women, estrogen also plays a role in bone density. And whenever you see lean, whenever they're very lean and they're under a lot of impact. So yeah, ballerinas, cheerleaders, a lot of these sports where leanness is emphasized and eating disorders are ubiquitous. Ballerinas is where you see this type of anterior tibial stress fracture occur. Yeah. So since I didn't know what it was, I just made it worse in the year after Exathlon.
So what did you do in those 2 years? I mean, did you have to like take a whole break?
Yeah, I had to. The only chance, because there's a surgery where they put a metal plate on it, but my mom and I react really bad to invasive procedures. So I tried to just, eat more, fix my hormone levels, and just stop impact. Yeah. And yeah, but in terms of diagnosing it, the way you know you have a stress fracture as opposed to a shin splint is that it hurts in that one spot. So I had like 8 spots between two shins. Wow. But you feel it in that one spot where the stress fracture is right on the front of the bone. And you will often get cortical thickening. That means a lump will form over your shin. I had a big lump over my biggest stress fracture. And I was like, oh, that's funny. Like, I don't know what that is. It usually only hurts in moments of impact. If you're at rest, you don't feel it.
Right.
And then you land a jump a certain way. All of a sudden, it starts hurting more often, like when you're going upstairs. And when it started hurting, when I was just laying in bed, I was like, okay.
That's a problem.
What's going on?
Something's going on here. We got to get it checked out.
Yeah, so I just rested for 2 years. I ate, and they mostly healed themselves. Yeah. But when I started doing parkour, my biggest stress fracture, the one that gave me the big lump, started coming back. And I thought, well, I guess I'll just train till my tibia breaks because I can't not do parkour.
So what, like that, I can imagine. I mean, that in itself sounds stressful. Yeah, like holy crap, I've been doing this for so long and now I got to stop. Like, what are you gonna do?
But yeah, actually, I'll tell you exactly what I did on accident. I was training, and I had some pain in my shin, and I was like, well, this is what it is, with my friends in Dallas, and I accidentally undershot a jump and I clipped my shin super hard on the edge of the wall, right where the stress fracture was. And I was like, well, and it bled and everything. I said, well, I guess that's wait a second. It started feeling better within like 2 hours. What? And then after I bashed my shin right where the stress fracture was, the stress fracture never came back.
What?
And I'll tell you, I confirmed this, my orthopedic doctor, he's been my orthopedic doctor since I was a child, Dr. Michael Sander here in Weslaco. He told me, it makes sense that what probably happened is that the reason stress fractures don't heal is because it's an area of such low vascularity. So when I smashed my shin, a bunch of blood and it got super swollen. And so a bunch of blood and nutrients rushed to a place where it usually doesn't go. And in addition to that, some people think that when you have a non-union fracture, that means it doesn't heal. Yeah. Your bone recognizes the edges of the fracture as the new edges of the bone. So when I hit it from the front, it probably stimulated some osteoclast activity.
Okay, so we just gotta let the audience know, please do not go around kicking bamboo trees if you have stress fractures in your shins.
But I wondered,
talk to your physician, talk to your doctor. But that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, no, there are some therapies. I forgot the name of it, but he told me there are some therapies where they use a needle or something to inflict damage on and to stimulate your immune system to repair certain things. That was cool.
Yeah. Well, that's crazy. But, what's more interesting and what I'm really interested in your experience in show business, right? What was your biggest shock? Or, when you go on these shows, there's a lot of people who don't understand really, the nature and contracts and in show business. Because, here in the Rio Grande Valley, we're in an industry where there isn't a lot of that. But what was your biggest, I guess, culture shock or, industry shock whenever you entered that, that realm?
I would have to think about it. So in terms of stunts, being a stunt double and a stunt actor, I'm still pretty green. I've only really been doing stunts consistently for 2 years. After Ultimate Tag, I had the stress fractures. Got super lucky and hosted a TV show for a minute. And then the pandemic happened. And then I got a call to do Doctor Strange for no reason out of the blue. Well, because I look like the actress, and there's not a lot
America
of
Chavez.
Yes,
Right.
and there's not a lot of stunt women my build, height that are Hispanic that also do parkour.
Yeah.
Another piece of advice I give people when they ask about, especially if they're parkour athletes that want to use parkour in the entertainment space, every job that I've gotten has been because I can do parkour and something else.
Yeah.
Whether it was a live show or because I can do parkour and act, or parkour and dance. Jack of all trades, master of none has come in handy.
Yeah, because you did mention earlier, offline, there's certain shows that you didn't do because of certain contracts. Like you wouldn't be able to do anything other than that particular show. So you decided to stay away from those shows.
Yes. So thankfully, with Exatlon, someone gave me the contact of an agent named Heidi Haidar. And now whenever I put a job through her, she makes sure to look through the contract and make sure it doesn't have an exclusivity clause that's going to screw me over, because that is something that occurs. A lot of shows have this exclusivity clause, and it hasn't been a problem for me. Most jobs, if it's in the contract, they have no problem taking it out. But for example, that's the reason why I haven't done Ninja Warrior, because they, one, don't pay. You can win money, but they don't pay. And according to their contract, they own your face. At least in regards to any other show that might resemble Ninja Warrior, they own your face for a year. I believe it's after the episode airs.
Yeah.
So I was like, you can't have both. You can't not pay and be super exclusive.
Right.
But it's one thing if you're a teacher or a fireman, you go do Ninja Warrior, go back to your normal job. But if you work in the entertainment space,
right, and you're doing parkour,
then that's not
advance. Yeah.
And I'm not knocking on Ninja Warrior. Ninja Warrior is very difficult. I'd probably be terrible at it, to be honest. It's a lot of, at least American, it's different in other countries. At least American Ninja Warrior is a lot of, it's pretty much bouldering. Like, I feel like climbers do the best.
I have noticed that a lot of the obstacles have, they're correct. Like their bouldering skills.
Yeah.
It's all a lot of upper body strength, form. Anybody, there was one that I saw, the female, she was like 5'1". She couldn't physically get through one of the obstacle courses, which was the ninja wall, the crawl wall or whatever it was, where you had to spread and you had to
I see.
hike your way up. She was just too short.
Oh, she would have to do like a full split.
She was basically having to do a full split. And I was like,
sucks.
That's impossible.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
No, yeah, Ninja Warrior is fun. It's very difficult. It's elite. But yeah, just speaking on the contract itself.
Yeah.
That's the biggest example I give people. In Ultimate Tag, we had like 2 or 3 extremely talented people that couldn't be pro taggers. They were the people that got to wear costumes and chase contestants and get paid per episode. They couldn't do it because their face belonged to Ninja Warrior. And that was a bummer.
And they probably didn't know, because maybe they didn't have an agent that was able to go through all the contracts. Like, holy crap, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they might have not even known that was in their contract when they signed it.
Yeah, I mean, because they're just eager, like, oh, yeah, I can get to be on Ninja Warrior, and let me just either get with an agent, look at the contract before you actually sign anything.
Absolutely. Look at the contract. Maybe, honestly, you could probably put it through ChatGPT and be like, explain this to me in simple terms, ChatGPT.
Oh, yeah. There you go. So how was it working in Marvel Studios?
That was wild.
Because that was a random call, huh?
It was so random.
You say these random calls, but there's a lot of work that you've been
Oh, thank you very
in.
much. Yeah. No, it might have been that because I have a website and like I said, I've been around for a while on the scene in terms of looking up girl parkour United States. Yeah. But yeah, I had already been tasted, but I hadn't done another stunt job in like 2 years since that first one, really. I think I did NCIS New Orleans one more time, and then that was it. So
what was that audition like? I'm sure you had to audition, or they just said, hey, we need you. Can you come over here?
You don't always have to audition for stunt jobs. All the stunt work you get is through networking. It's through the people you know. Yeah. Sometimes they'll host open auditions, like a fight call, or sometimes they'll need to see you. They'll have you in mind, but you need to audition a skill to make sure you can do it. Yeah. But most of the jobs I've gotten, most of the jobs that most people get, is just through a referral. I was in Texas. And I had just been recovering from ACL surgery. I tore my ACL during the pandemic when I was getting back into parkour again after the stress fracture. So that was fun.
Shout out, I'm sure you went to Dr. Sanders.
Yes, I did.
Oh,
yeah. No, he's great. I love Dr. Sanders.
Shout out to Dr. Sanders. And actually, I have had 2 knee surgeries, ACL, torn them, same one over again. Went to Dr. Patrick Sander here in McAllen, his brother.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't think they're twins, but they're brothers. Yeah, it's Patrick and Michael Sanders.
I didn't know. I've known him since I was a kid, and I didn't know that. That's crazy.
There you go.
But yeah, it was for reshoots. So Doctor Strange had filmed principal photography in London, and a very good parkour friend of mine was actually her double for principal photography. Her name is Pamela Forster, extremely talented freerunner, and she was actually one of the first women who inspired me when I was starting parkour. Wow. So it was a beautiful full circle moment when, I reached out to her, asked her for advice, and yeah. It was wonderful. They brought me on to do the reshoots that was shooting in Manhattan Beach. And in this movie, like 80% of what ended up in theaters was like the reshoots. They reshot a lot of that movie. So I got a crash course in everything. I had ridden a ratchet. A ratchet is a pressurized machine that pulls a wire really fast. Mm-hmm. I had ridden a wire before, but this was Marvel is wires 101. What's above 101? Like 505, I don't know. I had to you have to relearn physics to learn how to ride wires and do wire work, because you have to fight the wire to an extent. You have to actually ride it. It's completely different from movements that are self-motivated, which is parkour. And wrecking is also the opposite of parkour. I spent 10 years training myself to automatically land on my feet. Right. You do that out of a wreck,
you're gonna like on the side or your back or however you want to do it. You got to learn how to fall.
Yeah, you got to learn how to fall, and you got to learn how to make it look bad.
Yeah, without hurting yourself.
Exactly. Of course.
Speaking of John Wick, Chapter 4, falling down. I had an incident in my house falling down, and I replayed that moment. Just I couldn't stop going down the stairs. But
that movie has intense
Whoever
stunts.
did that wrecking stunt,
I believe it was 8711. That team.
That was crazy.
If I'm not mistaken, I actually just trained with a stunt coordinator that was on John Wick 4. His name is Koji. I forgot his last name. I was just visiting Japan, and that was random. He was very nice.
There's a specific community we speak of, but getting in or trying to break into industry, I hear you. What you're saying is you're building networking, you're building individuals and friends in order to break into certain roles. But there's something to be said about a nexus, right? Like being there in the middle of it. People who want to go to finance, they go to financial district.
Oh yeah.
So where was that place for you coming from the Rickon Valley? Say, you know what, I want to be in this community. Where do I need to be? And how did you identify that?
So after I lived in Orlando, worked at the theme parks, had a lot of fun, and then went and did the circus. It was after the circus in Canada when I was like, where do I want to live? My ex at the time was still on tour with the circus, so I got to test out a few different cities. Miami, absolutely not. New York was up there. But I ended up really enjoying LA. And I got Ultimate Tag, which shot in LA, and that felt kind of like a sign. So it was after Ultimate Tag that I moved to LA. But now I have moved to Atlanta because more things shoot in Atlanta. And, I want to make money. So
you gotta live.
But also it would be nice to live in the same place as something that shoots. It's almost like a joke. The stunt performers that live in LA that actually get work are never in LA because nothing shoots in LA. Yeah. Not many things shoot in LA anymore.
It's like in Atlanta, right?
It's too expensive.
Netflix is, or
a lot of Netflix things shoot in Atlanta. Tyler Perry Studios is there. Yeah. Marvel movies, a lot of them have shot in Atlanta. And this last Disney movie, which I can talk about now because the strike's over. The working title was The Pocket Watch, but the official title is The Descendants, The Rise of Red.
Ooh.
And I am so excited for that movie. I think it's going to be really good. Yes, it's a children's movie. I think it's going to be awesome. That was the last thing I got to work on in Atlanta.
How'd you get that role?
Again, someone emailed me.
Just somebody emailed me.
Yeah, Chelsea Brulin, wonderful, amazing, insanely talented stunt coordinator. She reached out to me and asked if I was available. This is what happens. A stunt coordinator will ask your availability. Then you send your materials, your resume, your show reel. If they have any specific skills they're looking for, they might ask for a fight reel or something. And then they let you know. And you usually don't even know what you're working on until you get there.
So when you first started out, did you have to make your own fight reels? Like, did you do?
Yes. So I have a lot of people ask me how to use their skills, especially their parkour skills, to work in entertainment. So I made a series of articles on my website, lorenaparkour.com, called How to Make Money Doing Parkour. But it applies to anything. It's basically how to use your physical skills to work in either live shows or in the stunt world. And like I said, I'm still pretty green. I've only been working stunts more or less consistently for about 2 years, but everything I've learned so far, I put there. So if you want to do stunts, first, you have to do what you just mentioned, is you need to move to where the work is. You can't hope you get a stunt job by being in McAllen, Texas, unfortunately.
Like you got to work it. Yeah, you have to go out there. I'm sure you got to go work it,
Absolutely.
And so talk about like gosh, it's hard. I feel like the old man. These kids these days, they want everything right away. So, I'm sure things happen right away for you, but there's certain definitely work. Maybe I don't want to say knocking on doors, but like reaching out to people.
Absolutely.
What did you do?
I got really lucky, right? Because I'm in this Goldilocks zone where at the moment, not a lot of stunt women look like me. And look is everything because people like me tend to double more than we goon. I call it gooning whenever you get a stunt acting role. That's if you're a soldier or a mafia guy or,
yes.
that's gooning, right? A cholo, whatever. People like me tend to double more.
Because those are roles. They're called goons.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I like to they're officially called ND roles. I call it gooning. I've gooned like once. And it was fun. But it is really fun because you also get to act when you're gooning. But doubling is usually what gets you what we call runs. A run is consecutive weeks of work. And that's where the money is and that's where more job security is. But I'm in this Goldilocks zone where not many stunt women look like me, but a lot of actresses look like this right now.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I got very, very lucky. I've gotten on like 2 or 3 runs at this point where I have friends with more unique looks that have been working for like 7 years, unfortunately, have not gotten on a run yet. Just because there's not a lot of actresses that are tall Asian girls. Like I got this generic, people always told me, you know what, you look like my sister. You look like that works for you in stunts. But for most people, it takes 2 years of hard work and networking to break into the industry. And what that looks like is first moving where the work is. Most of the work is in Atlanta. Then there's LA, then there's New York. A lot of stuff is shooting in Louisiana. And in New Orleans, and I think New Mexico is not so hot anymore.
Was Austin is anywhere in Texas like anything?
I don't know that anything major is shooting in Austin. I know they've got some commercials and stuff, maybe couple of TV shows. I don't know if it's not like major. A lot. It's not like you go to Atlanta, they're shooting movies and TV shows and all this stuff. Right. So first you go to where the work is, then you train where the stunt people train, and you make stunt friends, and then you shoot projects with those stunt friends. You shoot fight practices. And they're going to suck at first. I still suck at fighting. I'm trying to suck less at fighting because I'm the parkour guy. But if I want to be a better stunt performer, I don't want to...
You got to get in the gym, box, do some...
exactly.
Mixed martial arts.
And to get the body mechanics. Yes. You need to get the body mechanics. But you need to do film fighting because doing a choreographed fight between 2 people, making it look like you're actually trying to hurt each other, is not easy. So you need to find where the stunt people train. For example, jam movement. There's a jam in Atlanta. There's a jam in Los Angeles. A lot of stunt people train there. And there's random boxing gyms. Get in the Facebook groups. There's Facebook groups for stunt people. So you make a lot of stunt friends. You shoot projects with your stunt friends. Then you're going to start getting word that someone's shooting like a short film, independent film. And you just keep hustling until stunt coordinators know who you are. You make a reel. And in that reel, your first few seconds needs to be what makes you special.
Yeah.
So in stunts, the prerequisites, the absolute requirements are you need to know how to fight, you need to know how to wreck, you need to know how to take reactions. And I think, fighting, wrecking, reactions, that's like,
Yeah.
And so things are going to go a lot better for you in stunts if, in addition to those prerequisites, you also have something that makes you special. Whether that's tricking, whether you're a specialist at capoeira, whether you're a dancer, especially for people don't think about kids movies. There's so much work in kids movies, and also it's super fun. Always have to be John Wick serious. I had the best time on this children's musical. So dancing, anything that makes you special is going to give you that much more of an edge. So I have parkour. Not a lot of stunt women are very proficient in parkour. Because in addition to doubling or performing, another expectation you have on the job is being in charge of your actor. Now, the extent of that is going to depend on your stunt coordinator. But on both of the big parkour-oriented jobs I've had, part of my job was teaching some parkour to the actresses. And they crush it. And they're actually super good friends, I found out. Xochitl Gomez and Malia Baker.
Yeah.
They were I doubled Xochitl for Doctor Strange, and I just doubled Malia for The Rise of Red, The Descendants.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they knew each other. They're both extremely sweet, very hardworking, and awesome at any parkour that I had to teach them. So
that's cool.
When you make it real, whatever makes you special, I want to see it first, and then you show the prerequisites and short as possible. And you send that out. You start getting emails for stunt coordinators, and either they're casting for a job. Someone gets word like, hey, the stunt coordinator is looking for people for this or that. So once you start getting contacts, emails for stunt coordinators, you start sending out your information. You send your resume, you send your reel, and you say, hi, I'm this tall, weigh this much, Hispanic. The ethnicity matters because they're trying to not whitewash stunts anymore. Right. If they have a Hispanic actress, they're going to try and not give that to
a non-Hispanic.
Yes. Yeah. If it can be helped, of course. Yeah. So that's good. Yeah, that's how you start networking.
So, talking about the strike, which just got lifted, just yesterday, is crazy. We were talking. I was like, hey, so
I couldn't have name dropped anything if it was still going. Yeah.
So how long did that last? And what was the whole, I'm totally oblivious because I don't know anything about the industry. So I'm curious to know why it happened and how long it lasted.
Yeah. So the AMPTP, to my understanding, is an organization that represents the big film studios. So that's not just Fox and Warner Brothers, but it also includes streaming platforms like Netflix and Amazon Prime and stuff. So our contract, SAG-AFTRA, is the union that represents anyone who performs in front of a camera. So that's actors, including the big name A-list actors, but it's also stunt performers, dancers. I don't know if this was part of the strike, if they got performance capture in there, but extras and stand-ins. Yeah. So SAG pretty much represents anyone who performs in front of a camera, and SAG has a contract that renews. I don't know if it's 2.5 years. I don't know how long the contract lasts, but SAG-AFTRA has a contract with the AMPTP for how much the performers are supposed to get paid for certain types of work for certain periods of time. So the contract was pretty much made, was it in the 60s? And hasn't seen meaningful changes since.
Did
Something
AI
like
have
that.
a play into all this? I mean, because now people are...
Massive play.
Yeah.
So the two biggest issues were, of course, three big issues. Adjusting the pay for inflation, getting residuals, I'll explain that in a second, on streaming services, and protections from AI. I am one of the people who has had their body 3D scanned.
Whoa.
So
Really?
without AI protections, they could replicate me if they wanted to. They got me. But so what residuals are is when a show or a movie plays multiple times over the course of weeks, months, years, it keeps generating money, whether it's from ad revenue or from distribution in theaters. And the people who created the art in question felt entitled to continue making the money that it continued generating. So residuals, and what that ended up looking like was, after a show aired on cable and had reruns or something, you would, every once in a while, you get a check for your slice for your cut of what that show was continuing to generate over the years. And those residual checks are what allow us to work, quite frankly, because the work is transient. We have start and end dates, and we have gaps where we don't work. So once you'd worked on enough shows, these residuals, well, not only are you entitled to it because you made the show, like the actors, like
it sustains
we
you
made the show. Not only were we entitled to it on a fundamental level, but that also allowed us to stay in the industry and continue training when we're not working. It's what kept us afloat in between jobs. It was easy to track viewership on cable and in theaters. But when things moved to streaming, their viewership numbers weren't made public. So they just kind of kept it a secret, so that a lot of people say it's for their stockholders. So their stockholders don't actually know if a show tanked or if a show did well. They'll tell you this show's #1 on Netflix, but they wouldn't actually reveal the numbers.
Right.
So they actually just did not pay us any residuals at all for shows on Netflix.
Wow.
For shows on any streaming platform, pretty much. They were just the numbers are, we're just not going to tell you, and we're not going to pay you. So, part of, I don't know if they achieved this. I haven't read everything yet. I don't think they've even released the information yet, but
But the fact that it's released, it's in y'all's favor. I won't say it's in y'all's favor, but it's...
I don't know what they're going to do with streaming now, but what our union leadership initially proposed was, hey, so technology exists, and I think they found more than one third-party company that was able to extract individual viewership numbers for shows on streaming platforms. They said, hey, it's a third party, it's fair, and if your show does poorly, so do we, because residuals are based off of percentage of what the show generates. They should literally not be a problem. AMPTP said, that's a problem, we're not doing that. Just absurd. It's I'm not as diplomatic as others are on the subject, but it's, a handful of offensively rich people being very unreasonable.
Right.
Objectively. It's just a fact. And in terms of AI, one of the things they wanted, for example, was to be able to scan an extra, pay them for 1 day of work, and be able to use their image in perpetuity, which is nonsensical. It's what planet are you on? No. And it already happened to one friend of mine. He was the stunt double for Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy. So he's a big dude. He's built. He knows what he looks like. He knows his physique. And some other show came out where there was... I don't know if she was a shape-shifting character.
That Bautista needed a stunt double. I mean...
Oh, no. Even the most talented actors need stunt doubles. And sometimes you need 3 because... And not to say that the actors don't do their own stunts. Sochi, for example, she did a lot of her own stunts, right? But the stunt double is also there to train the actor. They're there to test all of the stunts before the actor does it. But also, sometimes... the film shoots in different units. So sometimes there's a second unit that's shooting at the same time as the first unit. So at one point, I think we ended up needing 3 of one character on The Descendants, for example. So stunt doubles, the stunt department is responsible for a lot.
Sorry, but going back to the AI, he got actually...
He's pretty freaking sure they used his arms in some other Marvel show where... I guess I haven't watched anything, but I don't know if this character is a shapeshifter or something and shapeshifted into parts of Drax, but He said, y'all, that's my arms. Like,
he was for sure. Those are his arms.
Yeah. He was like, I know and it's true. He has a unique physique. He's a very big guy.
Yeah.
And when you work so hard for it, you know what you look like. So I believe him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just one example. Like I said, they have my body scan. And the original purpose of that body scan, where stunts is concerned, is movies that have a big budget. They literally edit our bodies to look like the actors that we're doubling.
Yeah.
So they put dots on my face, and they'll also, since they have my 3D scan, just change my body to Sochi's body if needed.
Yeah. So, all fascinating. What led you to think about starting a facility in McAllen, Texas, in the middle of your career and successful career in film, and stunt, and acting?
Thank you so much. So this facility is my mother's facility. It's my mother's dream. And what happened was, when we were kids, my mom had to take us. I had so much energy. She had to take me to like 5 classes. She would drive me to karate, and she would drive me to, I think I swam for like 5 minutes. She would drive me to dance. She would drive me back and forth to lots of stuff. And she wished she had a place where she could just leave me for the afternoon. And my brother always wanted to play sports. He wanted to be physical, but he didn't want to compete on a team. And there's not really an option for that in most schools. You're either on the soccer team, and then you have the pressure of if you do bad, you're screwing over your team, or even cheerleading's competitive.
That's why I played tennis. I was a singles player because the pressure of
affecting another team.
Yeah.
It's
real.
That was one of the things that affected me the most in Exathlon, because for me, myself, I think that's also why I was able to play tennis competitively, because I'm not a competitive person. I don't have a competitive bone in my body. I simply do not care. My mom even got mad at me once. She was like, Lorena, at a tournament, because she's a very good tennis player. And she competed. She said, Lorena, it's like you don't even care if you win. And I was like, oh, well, no, don't. Yeah. Which is another reason why I love parkour. But yeah, there weren't any really recreational options for kids like my brother. Or for me, frankly. Like, I played tennis, but I didn't care about competing. And so every once in a while, my mom would rent a softball field, and I'd invite all my friends. My brother would invite his friends. My dad would invite all the other doctors. And we just play softball. We'd make a mud pit with a hose. We'd dance Zumba. We just played. And my mom said once, I should do this for a job. And I was like, yeah, you should. But that's where the dream of Kiskeya originated. She wanted to create a place where people could enjoy movement recreationally. Our slogan, our motto is movement, joy through movement, right? And also movement with purpose. So yeah, and at Kiskeya Athletics, we've got 4 indoor tennis courts. It's the only indoor tennis courts within a 150-mile radius. The next ones are in Corpus, unfortunately, because the summit burned down. And we've got, I think it's one of the biggest parkour gyms in the world, if not the biggest parkour gym in the world.
It is freaking phenomenal. I'm like walking in, I was like, holy smokes, I just landed in like Minecraft or something like that. It's
Thank you.
Like the way it's formed and being on the second floor of the facility. How big is the facility?
I don't know the facility itself, but the parkour gym is 13,000 square feet. It is massive.
Okay, and that seems like that's half of. It's like a quarter of the size of the building. It seems like, because there's all sorts of things going on in there. Yeah.
So downstairs we've got a fitness gym, which I also got to furnish. Which I'm actually really proud of the fitness gym, because we've got our cardio equipment, our cable training equipment, but we also have cross training equipment and actual equipment for Olympic weightlifting, which gyms in the United States just don't do. It is so perplexing. Like, I cannot go to a commercial gym and do clean and jerk. No one's gonna have a 35-pound barbell, and no one's gonna have free weights or a cage to do pull-ups. You can't even find a normal place to do pull-ups in most gyms. Yeah. So I made a gym exactly how I wanted it. I'm convinced it's better than every other gym. Yeah. Because I've been to like every other gym.
And now I want to go and try it.
You should, because any gym that's comparable, any gym that is going to have the kind of free weights that you want to do something like Olympic weightlifting or a cage to do pull-ups, that'll be like $60 to $200 membership for the bare minimum, and it's almost always only cross-training gyms, and you got to be signed up for a class. So this gym's $35 a month.
Yeah, which is pretty, to me, I'm like, whoa, this is
the fitness gym.
Yeah. Like, no, the whole facility is pretty fascinating. I'm really impressed with it.
Thank you.
And what y'all did, especially that parkour facility in the area, because it's like multi-level. In the middle, you have where
we have an Olympic-sized 42 by 42 foot spring floor.
Yeah.
And that is a bouncy floor. It's what the gymnasts use to do their floor routines. So we use it to learn flips and do tricking and stuff.
See, I swear, I thought it was just regular floor, and I just thought everybody was jumping around. I was like, holy crap. I was like...
Oh, and we also got a foam pit. And so with the parkour gym, we had an initial design made by an athlete called Brandon Douglas. It was kind of a bare bones on Google SketchUp, and then our architecture company started transferring it to Autodesk Revit, and I went to SciTech here in Mercedes, so we actually learned how to use Revit senior year. I got tired of trying to explain to the architect's assistant what I wanted to happen in parkour, and she actually just lent me her laptop, and I ended up designing the rest of the parkour gym on Revit, which was cool.
That's cool.
So within that gym, all of the obstacles in the gym are meant to, of course, reflect obstacles you'd find in the real world. One area is designed to look like Santorini, Greece, and a lot of the features that are painted on it are from real buildings in Santorini. And our incredible muralist Hector painted it exactly like I had rendered it in Photoshop, and we actually recreated 2 iconic real-world parkour spots that were demolished. One was Vauxhall, demolished in 2015. It was integral to the development of the sport. It's where a lot of the earliest practitioners refined the jumping techniques that we use today. Vauxhall from England, demolished in 2015. I got the dimensions from a buddy. We recreated it as closely as we could. And I also got the dimensions to a spot from Singapore that was demolished in 2019. I knew someone would have had to take them down because we're like that. Yeah. And I got the dimensions to Bedok Maze. And so we also got to preserve a bit of parkour history in our gym.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Thank you.
So what's the name behind the name Kiskeya?
Kiskeya, spelled with a Q, is the Taino name, the native name for the island that has the Dominican Republic and Haiti. We're from the Dominican Republic. I was born in the Dominican Republic. Okay. So my mom just changed it to a K, and that was always the name from day one. She's like, I want this to be the name. And I was like, that's great. That was never a decision. A decision that had to be made. She knew. This is essentially my mom's dream.
That's
awesome. This is what she's doing basically instead of retiring. She's starting a business.
Yeah. And then, so what is the vision? I mean, is it to, one, I see that there's a parkour community that's there, and I love it, because they're extremely engaging, they're inclusive, and they just want people to just have fun, and it's really cool. So is there any vision that y'all have to maybe increase the community in parkour here, or maybe get some more recognition? I don't know. What is the mind or the vision, behind what y'all want to do in the future for the area?
Yeah, absolutely. We're further developing our tennis program. We actually have really good coaches in our tennis program, and we're going to start, I think, hosting tournaments sometime soon. And in parkour as well, a lot of the appeal of parkour to me was the recreational component of it. And well, not recreational. I like to compare parkour to martial arts. Most people partake in martial arts to improve their bodies and their mind for a reason that's personal to each and every person. Mm-hmm. Martial arts competitions exist, but it's usually not the main reason people start doing martial arts. Right. Parkour is exactly the same way in my point of view. But I have done some competitions and they're really fun. And I didn't realize how competitive most normal people are. We had, especially since Ninja Warrior has gotten in so many people's brains, 'cause they have like little ninja competitions and stuff. We've had parents asking us if we have and we're making it happen next year. So I actually designed the gym for a specific type of parkour competition. I literally designed it for Sport Parkour League. There's other leagues that use the same format, but Sport Parkour League was the original league that developed the format of 3 events for parkour competitions. That is skill, where you test your power and your technique with challenges that you have to stick. Speed, which is, it's different from an obstacle course in that there's direction changes and different options for getting to the end depending on what your strengths and weaknesses are. And style, which is you're given an area and you're not just graded on the difficulty of your tricks, but how you interact with your environment and how it flows, right? So skill, speed, and style. I designed the gym literally for that parkour competition. And I designed it in such a way that you can actually do a continuous line around all of the obstacles in well, you can, and that's the best way. We had the space and enough time to keep messing with the design and get consultation from different athletes that there are options for how to get from A to B or A to A if you want to do what I call the Kiskeya loop and go around the whole gym. Yeah. We have obstacles that are as tall as 17, but they have layers. There's options. There's a high route, a medium route, another medium route, and a low route. It's a massive gym with so many options for things to do, and I am in talks with the Zenith Parkour League, International Parkour League, and with the Sport Parkour League, and in talks with USPK, the United States Parkour Association. I'm actually working on the document right now. We are bidding for nationals next year to host nationals.
That would be amazing.
At the very least, we're going to host a qualifier. We're going to host a qualifier for the Zenith International Parkour League. That includes Mexico and Canada, so we can potentially even have athletes coming up from Mexico to qualify through our competition. Yeah. And I'm trying my best for us to host nationals for the United States Parkour Association. And
that'll be cool.
Yeah, we would love to also have our own team for that. The best thing about Zenith is that they have a children's division. They have a youth division. So
how young kid? How long?
5. The youngest division is 5 to 7.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and these absolutely pretty much no one did parkour when we opened, and already some kids are becoming little beasts. It's so cool to watch.
Yeah, I'll be there on Saturday.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to talk about? I mean, let's also drop again what's about to come out, because we're really excited about what you're doing. Not only here locally, but also on the global scale with your entertainment career. So what can people look out for?
Thank you so much. Well, the thing that I'm about to be posting nonstop is what I worked on last summer, The Horror of Dolores Roach, where I got to double the absolutely legendary Justina Machado. It's a horror series, but it's like a black comedy horror. So check out The Horror of Dolores Roach on Amazon Prime, The Descendants, The Rise of Red. I don't care how old you are, this movie's gonna be lit. Yeah. Whenever that movie comes out, the songs are unreasonably good. I don't know if they got Lil Nas as producer or what, but it doesn't make sense. Yeah. That movie's gonna be awesome.
And it's supposed to be a kid. It's supposed to be.
The Descendants is they're a series of kids movies, and the next one focuses on, it's like a new storyline within the Descendants universe that focuses on the daughter of the Queen of Hearts and the daughter of Cinderella, the role of which was reprised by Brandy and Paolo Montalban.
My daughter's 8, and she does watch The Descendants, so she's gonna be excited.
This one, man, like the Descendants songs were already catchy. This is gonna be next level.
Yeah,
this is gonna be next level. I got to learn sword fighting for it. I got to do a lot of parkour. Got to flip off a table. It's gonna be great.
Nice. Cool. So how can people find you?
People can find me as Lorena Parkour everywhere. And as far as my family's facility goes, we are Kiskeya Athletics everywhere. And the last thing, if it's okay, that I would like to say is I just like to remind people that parkour is for everyone. Parkour is beneficial and it's fun for anyone of any age. It's going to improve your balance, your proprioception, but also your creativity, your problem-solving skills, your risk assessment. I think it's a very important life skill. I think it's really enjoyable, and you can do it at any age, and I mean any age. Parkour is going to look different for everybody. And once you get started and make it your own, you're going to realize a world of possibilities that you didn't even know was there.
All right, you just inspired me. Even though I have 2 torn ACLs that have been repaired, I will try it. Lorena, thanks for coming in. I really do appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for giving me this platform to just ramble a lot. Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to RG Vision Media Podcast. Look, if there's anything you want to hear about, listen to, be sure to follow us and also email us at info@rgvisionmedia.com. Stay tuned for our next episode.